Okay, so we're going to talk about the Ga'inim, and just to review quickly what I just said. Rounding up the years, 200 the Common Era ends the Mishnah era. 200 to 500 ends the Amoraim era, the rabbis of the Gemara, which is 250 to 500 of the Common Era, late antiquity. 500 to 600, Savoraim, early Middle Ages. And then you have 600 to 1000 is the Ga'inim. Gaon means the geniuses, the genius scholars, still in the early Middle Ages. 1000 to 1300 is what we call the early era of the Rishonim, the first commentators on the 1000 to 1300. Early Rishonim. A Rishon it's an era of commentary on the Chumash and the Gemara, and like Rashi is that era. Rashi is an early Rishon. The Rambam is an early Rishon. The first, I guess they were the first. I don't know why the names are what the names are, but that's what they are. High Middle Ages. 1300 to 1500 is the later Rishonim, ending with Rabbi Yosef Karo, for example. The creator, the formulator of the Shulchan Aruch.
And you said it's the end of the which era?
1300 to 1500, that is later Rishonim. Rishonim are the first commentators of the Talmud. And that's late Middle Ages. 1500 to 1700 is the early Achronim. Achronim means later, the later explainers of Jewish law, Talmud, Halacha. And that is pre-modern times, 1500 to 1700, roughly. And 1700 to the present is the later Achronim. For example, the Baal HaTanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, was considered an Achron. The Vilna Gaon would be an Achron. They're called the later Achronim. And that is, till to this day, we call the era of modernity. I mean, obviously modernity is broken into subcategories, but
do you think in 300 years there will be an era like from now till then? Do you think there's like a
good question? We're banking on Mashiach. So okay. So he talks about that's a nice little neat summary. Now he points out in 400 years, monotheism spread from one small nation to become the dominant force throughout Europe and the Middle East. We spoke last week with Constantine, taking the Roman Emperor, taking on Christianity and then spreading it on. The 4th century saw Christianity become the official religion of Rome. Missionaries spread its message among the Germanic tribes. And after the Western Empire fell, the new kingdoms that sprang up were all Christian. What it meant to be Christian, though, was not quite yet established. There were numerous groups, each seeing the other as heretics. Various church councils like I can't pronounce this, Nicene, like Nice?
Yeah.
Nicene in 325, and the Chalcedonian, CHLCEDONIAN, in 451, established one set of beliefs as orthodox, which means correct opinion. Sects like the Monophysites did not accept those opinions; they were suppressed. And that's why there was a lot of sort of infighting between the Christian groups. And that's ultimately why it might have been easier for Islam to capture such a large amount of territory in such a short time. The Gaonic era, the Gaonim, okay, that begins around 600 of the Common Era, roughly coinciding with the spread of Islam. And it happened extraordinarily fast, Islam. 600 would be the 7th century. By the end of the century, the Muslims, which means one who submits, covered the Middle East and North Africa. In the 8th century, they would continue to spread south into Africa, east into Asia, north into Spain, and they seemed unstoppable. So just a quick background, what was the attitude of the Muslims towards other faiths? It depended. Pagans had to convert, no choice there. People of the book, like Christians and Jews, did follow traditions that the Islamic faith revered, like Sinai and Omar. So they revered those as prophets. They were allowed free, by and large, not always, but most of the time, were allowed free practice of their faith as long as they followed the rules of the Dhimmi, which was the Dhimmi, which was a second-class status for non-Islamic minorities.
Didn't they have to, I don't know if it was this, at this period of time, but I know some period of time, the Muslims accepted the Jewish people in their areas, but they had to pay taxes?
Yeah, it's the Dhimmi.
That's what it's called? Okay.
Dhimmi. It was a second-class status of extra taxes, funny clothing, and stuff like that. Now, compared to the Byzantine rule, this was a pretty good time for the Jews. The load lightened considerably for the Jewish population of Holy Land, Asia Minor, Egypt, North Africa, all which were under the Islamic control. In Babylonia, an early innovation of the Gaonim, this is actually, we can open our Machzor. So if you have the red one, good. If you have any Machzor, go to Shachris for Rosh Hashana, which in the red Machzor is going to be 55 is no, but I'm telling you the Amida for Shachris. So go to page 109. 109. Page 109, it says we have Shachris Amida. So you'll notice a few things we add, Rosh Hashana, and we actually say these small additions through Yom Kippur, the whole 10 days of repentance. So they are, this is from the Gaonim, this era of rabbis. Zachrenu l'chaim melechafetz b'chaim. Remember us for life, King who desires life, v'chasveinu b'sefer chaim, and write us in the book of life, lamanche elihikim chaim, for your sake, O living God. Yeah. And then that's one thing they added. Also, next, you go a little further, page 109, go to the third line from the bottom. Mi chamoicha avarachaman, zoicher yitzurav l'chaim bracham. Mi chamoicha, no, mi cham, I'm not such a chazan. Mi chamoicha avarachaman, who is like you, O merciful Father, zoicher yitzurav, who remembers his creatures, l'chaim, for life, berachmim, with compassion. And then another small thing, which actually you don't see it here. I'm sorry, you do see it here. Skip ahead to page 151. I'm sorry, 151. I'm sorry. 115 or something. Page 113. Page 113. We're going to say this 10 days straight in every single Amida, whether on Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, or even the weekdays. So we say, page 113, Uchsayv l'chaim tovim kol b'nei v'risecha. Write, God, write for good life, call all b'nei v'risecha, the children of your covenant. And the fourth one they added is next page, the Gaonim added was, what we say, 114 in the bold of the second paragraph. So this is the end of Shacharis, in case you're having a different machzor. And goes in the book of life, blessing, peace, and prosperity, deliverance, consolation, favorable decrees. May we and all your children, the house of Israel, be remembered and inscribed before you for a happy life and for peace. Blessed to you, Lord, who blessed his people Israel with peace. So we're saying in the book of life and blessing and so on, we should be remembered and written before you, us and all of the house of Israel, for good life and peace. And blessed you, blessed us in peace. So that is all additions by the Gaonim. So now you know who were the authors of those, which era. Again, this is between the 600 to 1000 of the Common Era. Let's talk about Spain. Tradition had it. Yes, Howard.
So those traditions, are they are they coming because it's a time of, I mean, why are those additions happening then? Is it because of a time of?
I think it's a time of more, from what we learned last week, this is an example of piyutim, hymns that were added on. And their purpose was to set the mood, extend the mood of the day, and explain, give the feeling and build in the theme of the day, so the masses, which didn't have books, would appreciate the extra special quality of the day. And they did this by holidays also. It was kind of like a rabbi legislature, hidden legislation. No, not legislation, hidden education. Edumatainment, they say, right? Edumatainment. Okay. Now, interesting about Spain. I'll tell you fascinating about Spain. There is Spain, Jewish presence dates back to the first temple's destruction. Some dated even earlier. There's a legend that the tombstone was found near Valencia with the name Adoniram, treasurer of King Solomon, who came here to collect tribute, died. And according to Kings 1, Adoniram was killed by the Israelites when he was sent to collect the taxes. So it's a legend. I don't know if that's verified, but either way, it's at least back to the first temple's destruction. Tradition attributes to them the Emes V'Yatziv prayer. So if you have the red machzor, you go a little bit earlier before, a few pages back before the Amida, on page 107. We mentioned this last week. It's the prayer we say every day, actually. But just to give the context, tradition attributes to the Jewish presence in Spain this prayer we say, 107. Emes v'yatziv v'nochon v'kayim v'yosher v'nemon. No, it's not. I'm just saying, but we're just talking the era and the people. So this is the Seder Hayom, which is a 16th century Kabbalist Masad, attributes that to the ancient Spanish Jewish community. And he gives a note here of where does he get it from. I've heard this praise originated with the exiles far from Jerusalem who were not in Babylon with Ezra. Because the real action was in Babylon. That was where they were exiled to. And then some of those went from Babylon back to Israel for the second temple. When Ezra sent from these Jews who were in Spain, after the first temple, they said, we don't want to go. Because the second temple is not going to have didn't have the ark. It was missing 5 big things. It's eventually going to be exiled again. So better we stay here. And then this rabbi says, I heard these are the residents of Toledo and its environs. Okay. But they were not wicked. They composed this hymn. This is our source. There's allusions to the 3 exiles and redemptions with 8-fold mention of the word emes. Corresponds to the 4 redemptions, 4 in Egypt and 4 from other exiles. Yeah. Sorry, your question?
Oh, I was just wondering, when was the Temple of Toledo established,
Temple of who?
Toledo.
I don't know.
There's a synagogue there.
Yeah, and it's obviously much, I'd imagine it's much
I
later.
think it was, I was early, but I don't know how early.
I don't know how many synagogues, I have my friend, my Chabad rabbi in Greenville, South Carolina. That's how we learn geography. We don't learn geography in Chabad Yeshiva. We learn it through people going to these places. And then we figure out where these places are. But I don't know where anywhere else in South Carolina is, but I know where Greenville is. But anyways, interesting. He has we have the Jewish art calendar here. So there's a few different iterations of the Chabad calendar, bingo business. So one of them is synagogues of the world.
Oh, cool.
And so I could take a look on your way out. Maybe take a look.
But that's a museum now, but
But we might have that as one of the synagogues. Anyways, moving along. It talks to the second wave of exiles came after the Great Revolt to Spain in the year 70 of the Common Era. A 12th century source records that when Titus prevailed over Jerusalem, quote unquote, his officer appointed over Hispania, Spain, made petition for him to send the captives of the nobles of Jerusalem. And so he sent a few of them, and among them who were silk craftsmen. So we have a source for Jews. This is from Rabbi Avram ibn David, Ravid. Okay, that's a contemporary of the Rambam. Moving along, I'm gonna butcher some of these names here, but okay. Over the centuries, the communities grew, but we don't know so much about them. We do know that conditions were pretty bad, worsened under the Visigothic kings, some of whom applied extreme pressure to convert. King Ricard, he issued decrees excluding Jews from office and other, decrees. But King Sisebut, who became king later, Sisebut, made it even worse. He issued a decree that all the Jews have to leave the Visigothic kingdom or be baptized. Some left, some pretended. This is before 1490. This is way before. This is like in the 600s. Yeah, this is Spain. Yeah. King Sisinand, heavily influenced by the clergy, decreed, listen to this. This is, again, we think of Spain 1492. This is 600s. He decreed, King Sisinand, the offspring of baptized Jews should be separated from their parents and placed under Christian or cloistered care for education. Furthermore, he ordered that all forcibly baptized Jews who persist to observe any Jewish ritual will be enslaved. 653, King Recessiwend, I think, ordered that Jews who practice the rites of their faith should be beheaded, burned, or stoned to death. Things seem to get progressively worse. In 694, King Egisa, I don't know, confiscated all their property and sent them all to slavery, and Jewish children over 7 were taken as young as 7 to be taken to be slaves. One reason that he said he's persecuting the Jews because he's in there collaborating with the Arab and Berber armies in Morocco. Whether this was true is unknown. It would be, but whatever. The truth is, they were persecuting before there was any Arab or Berber threat. Once again, there's anti-Semitism, and then we find a reason. Okay, I don't want to get to every detail there because it doesn't take too long. So, deliverance came in the form of the barbarian armies, and led by a general, Tariq, because it was an Islamic general, Tariq ibn Ziyad, whom the area was named Jebel Tariq, or Gibraltar. A new era dawned, a golden age will last for 3 centuries. Wow. The harmony between the Muslim rulers and the Jewish and Christian subjects is sometimes always like today. It wasn't like today. It was definitely better than anything else back then. It wasn't like the 21st century. Even though they were second-class citizens, the Dhimmi, nonetheless, they were allowed to practice freely, and they could even at times take office.
They did a lot of things together. They built temples together, they built mosques together.
Math and science and art, yeah. Okay. France, so that's Spain, France. The Ummah, Ummah, the Ummah. Soon the entire Iberian Peninsula was in Muslim hands. The march continued north to the kingdom of, I'm sorry if I butcher these words, Francia, where they were finally, the Muslims were stopped at the fearful Battle of Tours. And the general who stopped them was Charles Martel, Charles the Hammer, who founded the Carolingian dynasty. Technically, he wasn't a king. He was only mayor of the palace, but he had the power of a king. His grandson, Charles the Great, would make it official. So Charles Martel, the hammer, was able to unify a good portion of today's France and fight off the invading Saxons in today's Germany. Charles' son, Carloman, was extremely pious. He retired early and became a monk. His but his piety did not stop him gathering thousands of Alemanni nobles and slaughtering them.
Alamine.
What?
It's just a French for German. Allemand.
Alaman. Okay, thank you. He was succeeded by
No problem.
Pepin the Short, whose son was obviously named Charles, but this one was special. Charles the Great, or Carolus Magnus, or Charlemagne, became a towering figure in medieval European history. 768, he was named King of the Franks, and has steadily increased his territory until it covered most of Western and Central Europe, reestablishing a degree of unity reminiscent of the Roman Empire. Large parts of modern Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Belgium, Netherlands, northern Italy, and parts of Spain came under Frankish rule, and including Luxembourg. Okay. He was also Charlemagne was a visionary statesman who introduced important reforms from his capital of Aachen, which is today is Western Germany. Yeah, are you saying so? I don't know. Promoting education and culture throughout his realm. Sometimes the area is called the Carolingian Renaissance. The indelible mark he left in European history earned him the title Father of Europe. Okay, he was good at branding as well. In year 1800, he had himself crowned by Pope Leo III as emperor in the West, one stroke casting himself as having restored the emperor of past glory and achieving the kind of legitimacy that only a pope could confer. Within a few generations, his domain was called the Holy Roman Empire. And we can't help but quote Voltaire, that the Holy Roman Empire wasn't so holy, it wasn't so Roman, and it wasn't such an empire. Anyways, probably around this time, but also later, but also maybe earlier, Jewish communities is relevant. Jewish communities in this area, under Charlemagne's rule, referred to themselves as Ashkenazi, while give or take around this time, Spanish Jewry got the title Sephardic. Both Charlemagne and his son Louis the Pious exhibited tolerance to Jewish subjects, offering protection to the growing communities. We're talking about pretty small numbers, though. The vast majority of Jews live in the East. Europe's communities are minuscule by today's standards. Even the Sephardic was also pretty small. And still they were, also the Christian populations are pretty small relative to today. Still they were growing, the Jewish communities, and they felt the lack of spiritual leadership. So what they do, they sent a letter to we spoke earlier, the Gaonic Yeshivot of Babylonia, which is the Torah capital of the world, which is now part of the new Islamic capital at Baghdad. And when Charlemagne sent an embassy to Caliph Harun al-Rashid, it included a diplomat named Isaac Judaeus, or Isaac the Jew, who happened to be Jewish. He was a diplomat. He carried with him a request, send us a rabbi to the Gaonim in Babylon. In the words of a later tradition, just to summarize, he sent, we have a quote here from, not sure where the quote is from, but of a tradition we have, they sent a rabbi who was a wealthy and knowledgeable Torah scholar, Rabbi Machir. He settled him in, Charlemagne had him settled in Narbonne, the capital city, and planted him there and gave him a great possession that he captured from the Ishmaelites, the Islamites. And the king and the Romans, they gave good Jewish laws for the Jews. And the seal of the king there bears his name, Carolus. Okay. All right. Now, according to a later tradition, was also this was the start of the famous Kalonymus family brought by Charlemagne from Lucca in Italy, one of the most famous, prolific in the history of the family, Colonimus. A lot of scholars came from them. Famous, prolific in the history of Ashkenaz. We'll discuss next week more. Back in Spain, the Jewish community in Barcelona was also in need of spiritual instruction. They did not have a clear understanding of the order of prayers. So this is what, late 700s. So they didn't know the order of prayers. They sent to the east, to Babylon, to Baghdad, addressing the Gaon of Surah, Rabbeinu Amram ben Sheshna. So I'm going to bring up on the board, we have in the picture. Let me just pull it up. It's black and white, a depiction of the academy at Surah. Let me pull up in color. For them. Okay. So the front page, yeah. So I'm just going to share the screen, so in case you don't have it printed out. So this is the depiction of the academy at Surah. We'll talk about them in a minute. When Muhammad died in 632, quick crash course about Muslim history, his close companions succeeded him. They were called the Rashidun, which means the rightly guided ones. The first hereditary dynasty was the Umayyads, who took power in 661. They ruled for almost 100 years till 750, when the Abbasid clan, descendants of Muhammad's uncle, led a revolt and launched a campaign to eliminate all surviving members of the Umayyad family. One got away. Who was that one? It was Abid al-Rahman, who fled to Spain and set up the Umayyad Caliphate in Andalusia. This became one of the most prosperous and culturally advanced regions in medieval Europe, known for its contributions to art, science, and philosophy. Many of those contributions were made by its Jewish residents, the community of Sfarad. The Umayyad capital had been the ancient city of Damascus. The Abbasids established theirs, so that was the Abbasids who kicked out the Umayyads. They established their new capital in the city of Baghdad, which was close to the center of the empire. This brought the Gaonim, especially from the city of Pumbedisa, in close proximity to the center of the action. Abbasid culture reached its zenith under one of the most enlightened and storied monarchs in history. And when we say storied, we mean 1,001 tales, 1,001 nights. It's about this monarch. Who was it? Harun al-Rashid, the upright. Harun the upright. And they praise him like crazy in history. Wise, discerning, pious, making 100 prostrations a day. He encouraged every kind of intellectual and artistic accomplishment, playing patron to a host of artists and scholars. Western civilization received Greek philosophy as well as drama from the Arabs. I did not know that. The Arabs are the ones who gave the West Greek philosophy. Harun created a Beit al-Hikmah, or a house of wisdom, where scores of translators, many of them Jewish, rendered the Greek and Latin classics into Arabic. Not Shrenoi. Okay. So in this era of 600 to 1000 there's different leaders, different rabbis. So one of them is in the Gaonim of Surah, which you're seeing what do you call this? A stone protrusion. What do you call a stone? A relief. A relief is I think so. Okay. Ninth in the list of Gaonim of Surah is Rabbi Natrenoi ben Hillel. His father Hillel was also a Gaon. Anyways, this guy Natrenoi was very prolific, and he wrote to a lot of communities of diaspora seeking his advice. he was pretty old when he became the Gaon, which means the chief rabbi. His star pupil assumed some leadership responsibility during his lifetime. When he died in 857, Amram Gaon was given the title, and he would head the yeshiva for 18 years. And he gave us, right, Amram Gaon of Surah wrote us our first prayer book.
Oh.
How'd that come about? Basically, the Barcelona Jews, and they're isolated, they said, send us guidance of how to guidance in prayer.
What date was that again?
857,
Okay.
after 857, around then.
When I say first prayer book, like this.
Yes, so he called it a seder, an order. Seder means, I don't know what, yeah. And we have he brings proof here of what we know that Amram Bar Sheshna was his father, head of the academy. He wrote as follows, may you be peace be unto you. And basically he wrote the first prayer book. The text that follows outlines the weekday, Shabbos prayers, festival editions, blessings or meals, and so on. His accomplishments, this is the first sitter. Rabbeinu Amram was the first prayer book, which opened the door for many other prayer books to follow in the next 1100 years. Interesting. When he died in 875, the author of the second siddur was a boy, a prodigy who was 7 years old, living in Egypt. Interesting. Here's a story about the Karaites. Okay. One of the things in the Babylonian Jewry, for many hundreds of years, there was a thing called the exilarch. Exilarch was the government, the government, the non-Jewish government sanctioned Jewish leader of the exile, and had a lot of power, sweeping powers. Traditionally, it came from somebody from the line of David. Of course, there's a lot of fights of who became the exilarch, and some accounts say this is how the Karaites popped up. Basically, there was Hananiah, two brothers were vying for the position for exilarch. One was chosen, the other one did not accept that and said, I'm the exilarch. So that's treason because the government sanctions who they sanction, and he's put to death. I'm sorry, he's imprisoned and sentenced to death. In prison, he met a fellow inmate who's an Islamic legal scholar named Abu Hanifa. So basically, he told him, just say you're not being the exilarch of the Jews, of the rabbinic Jews. You're exilarch of the Karaites, of the biblical Jews. Make a new Judaism. And that way he got out of it. He wasn't killed. And this sect, the Karaites, basically denied the authority of the rabbis. And they said, we only follow the Bible, the dictates of the literal Bible. Yeah. And they actually started growing like crazy. And it was a big problem because they were seeming to eclipse the rabbinic Judaism. Just 1 second. Right. So just continue. So we need a champion to fight down this big threat to Judaism. And that came in the form of a guy, an Egyptian Jew named Sadia ben Yosef al-Fayumi. Sadia was born in Fayum. Some say it was an area considered to be biblical Goshen. He came from a noble family, said to have descended from Shelah, the son of Judah. And later, he also came from the famous Mishnaic Rabbi Hanina ben Daisa. At age 23, he left Egypt to attend the yeshiva in Tiberias. where he studied, and that same year he wrote his first polemic against Karaism. When he moved to Surah, he made a name for himself. In 926, he is appointed the Gaon at the Academy of Surah. This is like, Cambridge. This is the Jewish top, yeshiva. This was someone who did not shy from controversy. In addition to Karaite challenge, there was also a big problem. Aristotelian philosophy was sweeping Islamic countries. And a lot of Jews were like the Aristotle, but in the Torah, they didn't have Jewish philosophy formulated. So he wrote the first Jewish philosophy book called Emunot Videot. He wrote his own prayer book. He also didn't just arrange the order of old ones, he added new ones. Saadia Gaon, 926 or something like that. He was also a linguist and a philosopher and a poet, and he composed many different piyutim, hymns. The most famous is on Shavuot, where he took the 613 mitzvahs, how they're found within the 10 Commandments. Anyways, in Saadia Siddur, as in Amrams, we find the hymn Aleinu L'Shabeach. So who authored Aleinu L'Shabeach? Different opinions. Some say he included it, but it wasn't his. He didn't make it. Some say it's from Rav, the Gemara rabbi. Some say it goes back to the Anshe Knesset Agdela we talked about last week. The rabbis, the Great Assembly, in the beginning of the Second Temple, and going all the way back to, some say Joshua wrote it when he entered the Promised Land. So either it's from Joshua or some say it's Anshe Knesset Agdela, whatever. Maleno, yeah. Okay, moving along to Europe. I'm gonna have to cut out a lot of stuff here. Okay, well, we're actually almost the end of history, which let's look a little bit actually into our handout. Just have some pictures. Charlemagne. And then we have Charlemagne crowning his son Louis the Pious. You have to turn your head to the screen, but Harun al-Rashid left receiving a delegation sent by Charlemagne. This is, I wish I could. I'm not sure how to. I'm gonna try to flip it, but this is a 9th century siddur, the oldest one we know of. And this is another. That's what it is. Oh, there, yeah. Yeah. Koran tries to use a font like that. That's the Koran font. They try to use a semi-scribal. Okay, so that's just some of the pictures. Okay, we got to talk about one guy. We're going to skip ahead. So this guy, I skipped a little bit, but Rabbi Abun Hagadol had a name called Isaac the Pious. Who was the son of Isaac the Pious? Shimon. We came to Mainz. This is the Mainz, an old German area cemetery. He was an older, he went to Mainz to study. That was a big yeshiva. There he was an older colleague of Gershom ben Yehuda, who was called the Light of the Exile, thanks to the council of which he presided with, which issued sweeping enactments like Rabbeinu Gershom is known as the Maor Shebegola, the light of the exile, because he made some very sweeping enactments that really we do to this day. Ban of polygamy and reading other people's mail. And Rabbeinu Gershom. And then his colleague Shimon bar Yitzchak, who toiled on behalf of the communities and illuminated the exile with his hymns. Prolific hymn writer. Okay, now let's open our. He was hailed. He was called Hagadol. But only a few rabbis in Israel called Hagadol because they were so prolific. He was one of them, right? Rabbi Shimon Hagadol. His hymns, we're going to talk about in a moment. So let's go to. I don't have. Oh, actually, I printed out last. To share. So actually, I have the computer. I'm going to show you now another. This is from last week. We're going to break down. So if we go to, we spoke about Eliezer Hakalir. Structure of a krova. So now go to Shachris Amida for page 115. So the structure of a krova, which becomes very relevant, helps us decipher a little bit of the Rosh Hashana prayers. So the Amida does a lot of extras, a lot of hymns, where these hymns have a certain rhyme to the reason. Which is, first there is Rishut, a hymn of asking permission. Rishut means permission.
Is that root in just guessing, I could be completely wrong, but is it like saying, like there's a.
Ritzay?
Is that, or is that?
This is not usually here. This is only in the high holidays. It's a hymn of asking, the Chazan's asking for permission to approach and be our intercessor on our behalf. So it's the beginning of the prayer. So if you go to foremost, so it happens a bunch of times. Apparently this is the structure of a lot of the and he's another Rishos. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a second. So Rishos, then you have the blessing of Magain, which is the second blessing of God. The first blessing, Magain. Magen Avraham.
What page are you on?
I'm just showing. I'm doing the Chazaras the Chazin's repetition for the Amida of the first day. If you have the Kahas, if you have this version, it's on page 116, but if you have another version, you have to find the repetition for the Amida of the first day. So first it says the Chazan is asking permission. Then there's Mugging, I'm not sure what that means. Oh, did I get there? Did I lose that? Sorry, I just lost. I guess I clicked it out. Sorry, one moment. Okay. I don't know how we got there, but we somehow did. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I don't know why I lost that, but here I am again. All righty. So we had the Shema. Here we are. So Magen Avram is the blessing. So we have a Magen, there's another hymn they put into there for some reason. And let's see what that ends. All right, Mechaya. Where is that? I don't see it. Magen Avram, we see.
Which page is it?
We're on page 117.
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah, at the end. Yeah. So Melech Elyon is a hymn that's added there. Okay.
I have a question, I don't know, how, do these hymns just like passed on to people or?
No, they were made by, we spoke last year, these are made by Eliezer Kalir, like 80% comes from this one guy. Forgot the exact time period, he's some of the medieval ages. But now we're talking about these Krova, which is all this first day stuff. You see there's like a, I don't know, 10 these hymns in middle, Meshulosh Atakadosh. Trying to decipher it myself. By Moshe. He's for getting good use of the Chum. Equates muscle. So all right, so this explains a little bit of the logic. I don't really, we had it last week, we didn't really get a chance to it, so I apologize. But there's, he established the sort of this chart that's in front of you. What's relevant to this week, Eliezer HaKalir, the Kalir. He composed Krovot, which is this, when do you put, here, actually, here, look at Krov for Shachar, first day. Here it says Shachar for first day, Rosh Hashana. You have Reshut, Misoid, Chachamim. Okay, this is what I'm sorry. I mean, the other was for holidays. This is particular Rosh Hashana. So you have here, if you go to Chazar Hashatz, says Reshus, Misoid, Chacham, and Avain is page 117. Was that 115? From the secrets, based on the secrets of the wise. I'm gonna please let me go. Reshut, Yeresi is asking, I'm awestricken as I open my lips. He's giving me like a formula how to approach God. Magen at Chil Yom Pekuda. So, is that here? 116. And then Magen Avraham, the one God who protects Avraham. Mechaya is Ta'alat. Mostly we don't use it, we don't say it today, but we do say Melech Elyon, which is on page 1. Oh, page 117, Melech Elyon. And then Krov for Shacharit, first day of Rosh Hashana. Here's the mostly we don't say a lot of this today, but Mishulash is Atu Lekenu B'Shemai Maretz, page 118. A little of the structure. I guess if you read it, it's beyond the scope to read all the prayers. I mean, if you can, we can appreciate a little bit of the how things segue. Adire Ayuma, famous one, is on page 124. And then Lakel Erich Din, the God, 126, Lakel Erich Din, to Hashem who arranges judgment, to the one who Bochen Levavot, he searches the hearts of men, the hearts of people on the day of judgment. So that's, and Siluk, we don't say it today. And Melech Kodesh. That's basically what Eliezer HaKalir. So it's relevant for us to know today is those were only, so that's a large structure.
But how is this different from the daily or Shabbat? I mean,
A lot of hymns, lots of hymns.
It's also together with family.
So we spoke in the first class, those are part of this 18 or 19 blessings. These are huge parts of hymns inserted in addition to that. So it's not instead of, you always have to do the blessings that you do, which is not 18. Shemona Esrei is not 18 on Shabbos Yom Tov. It's only 6 plus 1 in the middle. Sure, on weekdays it's 18 or 9. It's actually 19. But
Oh, I don't know.
So this guy Shimon Bar Yitzchak lived about almost the year 1000, some of the 900s. He took that style of the Krovot, which is the way you approach God and the way they wrote that. He applied it for all the second days of the holidays. So the second days, if you go to page, just very quickly, 43, we saw Atu Alekenu, we said that already. We saw 134, we saw Lakel Erich Din, we just said that. But he repeats it on the second day as well as Yom Kippur. So basically, wait a second. Yeah, page 140, page 133. Go to page 133. So here you have the repetition for the meat of the second day. Eliezer HaKalir did not make a Krova formula for the second day because I don't know, I'm not sure why. So this guy, Simon Bar Isaac, he filled the gap and he made one. So he did page 133, Assisi, I've come to implore you. Again, that's a Reshus. Followed by a Magen, focused on our father Avra on page 134 in Ras Chutzrufa. Talks about Avram. These are all hymns, they're all poetry surrounding the existing blessing, Magen Avram. It's like poetry about Avraham who approached you and this, that. Okay. Before proceeding, let's note that some piyutim people would borrow, they would, even though he didn't make it for the second day, Eliezer HaKalir, they did it anyways. They liked it so much, they did it the second day.
Well, it's on,
Some of his.
okay.
Simon Bar Isaac's Piyutim hymns are like Shemo Mefarim, page 46, 119, page 119. Is from Simon by Isaac, and Eder Vahod, which is page 120. Eder Vahod is from Simon by Isaac, Shem by Yitzchak. And if you notice, so here's the cool thing: if you have Regina, I don't know if do you have the same edition or you have a different edition? Same Regina on the computer. She's a machsa. It's hard to tell you to go where the exact. Listen to this. He encoded his name in here, which is very common. So in the opening, page 40, page 120, Shimon. How do you encode that? Oh, the bold is no.
You said the Fa'arim, it's right in there. Shemo, the Fa'arim, is that it?
Shimon Farah. I'm trying to see his name. How is his
Is
name?
that it? It says Shimon, it says Shimon Fa'arim.
Maybe.
So maybe it just.
Each stanza of Shimon Mefarim carries the author's name in its opening.
Yeah. Shimon.
Who's the author?
Shimon Bar Yitzchak.
Shimon ben Yitzchak.
So I guess Shin Mem Ayin. It's not exact, but like it starts off at least Shin Mem. I'm not really sure. It's someone in there. It's not so clean.
No
problem. Be well. Thank you so much. Enjoy. You take the handouts if you'd like.
Yeah, should have to.
Be well. Okay, so we're pretty much wrapping up. Just to go through some of the prayers. Page 136. So well, Shimon Farah, basically, if you notice, well, I should have left so quickly. Shimon Farah, page 120 again. The logic is a few of his letters of his name, and then it borrows from a verse and ends with the word kadosh. The theme is the three Rosh Hashana prayers: Malchiot, Shofrot, and Zechronot, which are the three themes: kingship, remembering us, and shofar. So he says, how do you see that? I guess how do you see that in here? So if you look, two of them are obvious. Shomri mitzvosov. So look at page 121. Look at the bold, right? So it's clearly talking about. Remember, we spoke yesterday. Rosh Hashana has three blessings that are the theme of the day. So every holiday has at least one theme. Rosh Hashana has three. That's three, and thereby three blessings. Shofra, Malchios, the blessings and the verses surrounding the concept of God being our king. Zichronot, God remembering the altar of Isaac and all the good deeds. And then Shofrot is times when we speaking about the shofar. So look at 121. It's flat out. The first one you see talks about remembrance of Isaac. The bottom of 121, the remembrance of the shofar. So 120, it's not as clear, but he says if you could see it, because he mentions just by cross-elimination. I'm not sure how he sees it. It doesn't mention the word Malchus, but if you look closely into it, it talks about his grandeur, his majesty. It doesn't say the word Malchus as like it's not as easy to see, but the theme does fit. Okay. The second stanza in page 121, it talks about remembrance, painting a scene of study. The faithful study discuss the Torah, and God listens attentively, quote unquote, taking notes. And the third focus on the message of shofar. The plain word shofar is shapru. Fix up, clean up your deeds. Shapru. And the fourth stanza returns to Malchus. It talks about the symbolisms of a tree's branches with an allusion to the rod of royalty. As you know, a rod or a scepter was the sign of king rulership. And the fifth of the second speaks of returning to the temple in God's remembrance. The intensity climbs as we read. The tribes of Israel are saved and allowed to ascend the holy mountain. The name of God towers over the scene, granting power and symbolic tower to the anointed one as the cosmic shofar blasts. And the climatic stanzas Malchus, now in the mouth of every one of God's creations, every inhabitant of earth, Mashiach, all declaiming Higdal Adonai Lasod Baretz, which is um, I'm not sure what he's quoting, but he says it ends off. Everybody recommends the next page, the next series on page Eder Vahod. Eder Vahod, where's that? Trying to say. Maybe it's in the second day. This we're doing the. All right, I'm not sure what that is. I'm sorry. And the first clause of each verse, it has a alphabetic acrostic. Anyways, Shimon's nephew was named Solomon. What's more certain is that he had a pupil named Yakar, who had a son named Jacob. And Jacob and Yakar was a teacher to Solomon, who grew up in Troyes and came to Mainz to study, who'd become a next pretty big teacher of the Jewish people from the 11th century to the present day. And that'll be the next chapter of who is this mystery big rabbi named Solomon. All right, that ends. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful day. Be well.
All right. Good
Bye-bye.
evening, Issei.
Bye-bye.